Okay, so he called it love, but it was control, chaos, and survival. So before we dive in, you're listening to Kind of Healing, Kind of Triggered, where we break down, move forward, and look up. I'm Isabel, and today's episode is going to be raw. It's going to be avoided and before we dive in today, I want to say this. This episode is going to be very vulnerable, and it is not to shame anyone, get revenge, or to center pain. It is being shared just to make sense of it, to offer language to people who feel trapped in their silence. So, if you've ever experienced a controlling, chaotic, or an abusive relationship, this episode may bring things up. Please take care of yourself and whatever you're going to need. Pause, breathe, come back later, or skip this episode. Healing has no timeline, and your safety matters more than any story. This is a version of you. This is for a version of you that stayed because you thought love had to be earned. And now the version of you is learning that peace doesn't have to require pain. So today's episode is going to be raw and vulnerable. I've avoided, rewrote, doubted, and denied this episode. I filmed it last week and I hated it, so I didn't post it, and I've been putting it off. But this time I think I can tell this story as I remember it. It may not be perfect, but at least this is my perspective and it's going to be my truth. Um, so we're going to dive into my dating history and break down each single relationship. So segment 1 is we're going to call him Church Boy. Um, I was a senior in high school when I met him. I met him at a youth group camp, or not a camp. I met him at a youth group, Young Life. Um, he was a year older than me and had a sense of personal confidence that I didn't have, which definitely, I think, attracted me to him during this time of my life. Um, the controlling aspects came very, very slowly in our relationship. This was my first real relationship where it was long term. We dated for a year. Um, so things started out really slowly. Uh, it was like small things like him helping me dress better because he didn't like it when I wore running shorts and baggy t-shirts because it looked sloppy. Um, there were small things we did, like he wanted to know when I came home. And he also had my location. So when I pulled in the driveway, I was supposed to text him, "Hey, I made it home." And if I didn't and he saw my location home and I forgot to tell him, he would get pissed and it would start a fight. Um, Also going out, I had to tell him who I was with, where I was going, how long I was going, and then I had to send photos for proof if he thought I was lying. And as a reminder, there was no trust issues like on my side or his side. Like none of us had cheated in this relationship. So this was my first relationship, so I genuinely thought this was normal and healthy. And I didn't want to ask anyone because I felt so embarrassed by it and I wanted it to be mine. I didn't want to like share this experience with anyone else. Um I did not realize I was shrinking inside of a box he made for me. I thought I was learning how to be a better girlfriend and a better partner. I thought I was growing while in love because I was becoming hints better. Um, but love doesn't slap you in a Olive Garden parking lot. Love does not push you in a parking lot either. Love doesn't leave bruises on you and say they're training you like a dog. But I stayed a little longer. Um, I thought it was going to get better and that I could decompress the situation. Um, I thought love was supposed to hurt because my nervous system had been trained to believe that intensity of someone meant it was genuine connection. Now that I'm healing from this relationship and the domestic violence that did occur and the controlling patterns, I realized I wasn't being stupid or immature or naive. I was genuinely being conditioned since day one. Um, and I think healing, I've learned to forgive myself for not knowing the difference. So, for the second part, this is my second relationship. This one was my longest one, 2 years. Um, my second relationship was with someone who, in my opinion, battled alcohol addiction, and he lost over and over again within our relationship. Um, when he was drinking, he was not the nicest. So the nights blurred into fear and guilt when I did spend the night with him at his house. Um, there's one time when I remember being locked in his room. It was in like late at night. It was 10:30, 11 on a school night. Um, he'd been drinking. I may have had one or two drinks, but I felt confident enough to drive, at least to get out of that situation. Um, he was getting very angry because he was playing Xbox, and I we were having an argument. I don't remember what it was. Um, I tried to leave because I was getting really frustrated and I needed space. And I stood up, went to his door, and he stood in front of it, shut it, and locked it, and told me I wasn't leaving. And I tried to reason with him, and he was like, "You can't leave when it's late at night. I don't want you driving on the roads." And I was like, "Okay, well, I just want to go sleep in the guest bedroom, which was beside him." And he wasn't having that either. He was like, "No, you're gonna sit here and figure it out." And I'm the type of person where when I'm mad or frustrated or upset, I shut people out. I get very angry fast when I'm triggered and I need space to cool down, I've learned. So by him blocking the door and not letting me leave, I triggered my feeling of my trauma feeling of being trapped. Um I didn't like that. It felt like I had to walk on eggshells, not knowing when things would set him off some days, and it would set him off, not set him off other days. And of course, when he was drinking, he was more susceptible to the violence, emotional violence that emotional abuse he inflicted. Um, What really traumatized me in this relationship was the reason why I ended up breaking up with him, actually. One of the reasons. There was a night when we got into a pretty intense argument. Um, he had been drinking. We'd both been drinking that night, actually. It was a weekend, and he was on pain medication for a injury he had, and out of desperation and fear and confusion, he decided to take all the pills, and lock himself in the bathroom. And he was living with his parents at this time. So when they said, "Oh, where is," um, I went up and checked on him, saw the door was locked, saw the empty bottle of pills on his desk, and freaked out. Um, that was probably one of the scariest times of my life. And unfortunately, I remember it. Um, he ended up being okay. And then his parents and I ended up staying up till 5, 6 a.m. with him, waiting for all the drugs to get out of his system. Because while the drugs were in his system mixed with alcohol and oxy, he was a very different person. He was very mean, violent, um, could not be controlled by his parents or by me. Um, I even spent, I think, 4 hours sitting down at the dining room table, trying to calm him down and talk to him just so he wouldn't hurt himself or anyone else. Um, this definitely instilled the fixer in me when it came to relationships. He blamed the overdose on me, saying it was my fault. And he would never have done that if I wouldn't have done my actions. And I think that carries a lot of weight on my shoulders, even to this day. Um, Somehow I stayed. I thought I could fix him, that if I loved him hard enough and perfect, he would choose to be the man I knew he could be. Um, Now that I am healing from that relationship, I now know that love isn't rescue. Caretaking isn't genuine connection. And I was never the cause or the cure for someone else's pain. My third and final relationship, since my healing journey, or before my healing journey, was, we're gonna call him military boy. My third relationship was definitely a lot calmer and I was more emotionally aware of physical abuse, and so I had higher standards. We didn't jump into dating right away. We actually talked for a hot second, which I was frustrated with, because I'm very impatient. But he was in the military, or he was supposed to be going into the military. Um, and at that time, he had discipline, direction, and he had a really, really good way with words, which is why I fell in love. Um, as our relationship continued, I started to realize that some of his words didn't match his actions. And I grew up in a house of inconsistent emotional validation. So his inconsistency was a kind of emotional chaos for me in my head. Um, and I didn't tell him that, of course, but after the time he was supposed to go into the Air Force, he didn't. And during that time, it felt like I took on a lot of emotional baggage in the relationship because I put my own emotional needs aside in order to be there for him, to make sure he was stable, had direction, had purpose, and had um like and wanted to not and didn't fall into depression. So after healing from this relationship, I learned that I need stability when it comes to a future. Um, I felt like I got breadcrumbs futures because there were promises, but then I never saw like direct action following those words. Or they were like far away actions that were like waiting, and I was like, I and this person wanted me to wait for him. But this person had no, it felt like he had no sense of purpose, sense of drive, and had no, he had no vehicle also. Um, and during this time, he was not wanting to Uber and spend money. So I don't know. I feel like I just did a lot of parenting in that relationship and stayed longer than I should have when I should have been focusing on my own emotional needs. But at the same time, because of that relationship, I am now who I am today. So I do not regret any of these, and I'm very thankful for every single person in my life. And I respect all of them, and I hope they're all doing very well in life. Um, and I hope that they have learned from the pain caused and grow for the future and for themselves. But moral of the story, the final connection is that it's taken me since my senior year, and I'm 22 now, to realize that I wasn't weak for staying in these relationships. I was starved for emotional connection and stability and safety. Um, I mistook the survival for intimacy. And each relationship mirrored something that I was trying to heal, whether it was my emotional silence, the chaos that I normalized, or the belief that if I suffered enough, I would finally be worthy of their love. So, here is what we're going to do today for the end of this episode. We are going to do a closing affirmation. You're going to repeat after me. I am no longer available for love that costs my peace. I am no longer available for love that costs my peace, whether this is romantic, platonic, or family. The second affirmation: I am allowed to outgrow the stories where I was not protected. I am allowed to outgrow the stories where I wasn't protected. And the last affirmation is I forgive myself for calling abuse normal, sexually, physically, emotionally, financially. So, if this episode stirred something up for you, don't forget to pause, breathe, and remember that you're not alone. I hope that my interpersonal dating can help someone else by exposing their pain through my words. Just remember that you're not crazy and you're not broken. You are simply healing while being triggered, and that's okay. Tune back next week to Kind of Healing, Kind of Triggered, where we're growing up, breaking down, and looking up. See you next week.